Hello friends, and also hello enemies. So when I started this channel, it was always my intention to review not only action figures, but art books as well. And I've never really gotten around to that, even though I have several art books. There have been so many times when I've wanted an art book, but I've wanted to know what's inside it. Is it informative? Does it have a lot of good art? And sometimes it's hard to find a good review for art books. So yeah, I've always wanted to make some videos about some of the art books I have. So if anyone else is looking into buying these, they can kind of get a feel for what's in these. This one in particular is the Dragon Age Veilguard art book. And suddenly I can hear a million voices shrieking in the distance. Isn't Veilguard terrible? Isn't it woke? I'm very aware of the controversy around Veilguard, the continuing controversies, and we'll touch on that a little bit in this review. But I got this for Christmas. I also got the game for Christmas, so I wanted to finish the game before I looked at the art book in case there were spoilers. And first up, I'm going to tell you guys that there shouldn't be any major spoilers in this. You're not going to see anything while I'm flipping through the pages. So if you haven't finished the game yet or are concerned about that, there's nothing in here that's going to give anything away. And if I do flip to a page like that, I'll just cut it out. Second thing we need to acknowledge. Yes, my nails are dirty, but I promise it's not dirt under there. It's ink. I've been doing lino cut printing all day. If you don't know what a lino cut print is, it's something like this. Just something you carve out onto a lino tile or a rubber tile and then coat with ink and then press into paper, and it makes a little illustration like this. So I've been doing that all day. My fingies are not clean. They're as clean as I can make them. So if you're a regular watcher and you're familiar with my action figure content, why'd I use that word? I don't like that word. But if you're familiar with it, this will be something new, and I hope you stick around, even if you don't like Dragon Age. So this is the deluxe art book. It comes housed in this really cool slipcover. The main focus of the game pretty much is this dagger, so you've got a corrupted dagger on the front. And the purified dagger on the back, it's all very nicely stamped with, I wouldn't say gold, it's not really reflective, but like a yellow ochre, and it's shiny against that matte, which looks really nice. In addition, you get this folio. Inside, there are two lithographs of illustrations, key art illustration and concept art from the game. So you've got Solus and a wolf, and the Dread Wolf attacking Minrathous, maybe? This one I love. This one is really beautiful, of course, but I'm way more into stylized art like this. You've got the Dread Wolf, you've got the city, Gillinane, Elgernon, and I think down here, I think this is supposed to be Meredith, and this is supposed to be Corypheus. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I'll probably take this out and frame it at some point. So yeah, beautiful artwork. The book itself is also very lovely. Look at that. Gilded. The edges are gold. On the back, you have that awesome Dreadwolf image. I love that. I kind of wish that that was the front of the book. But it lives in the slipcover anyway, so. Another thing I love about it is that it's got a tassel. Big bonus points when you've got a tassel. That goes for anything. You open up to Solus, and I'm not going to go through every single page of this. We're just going to flip through, and if I land on something interesting or remember something to complain about, I'll let you know. But I have to say, I really enjoyed this when I finally flipped through it. It's very, very heavy on the art, not so heavy on text, which I actually prefer. You get some little explanations here and there of decisions they made, but I much prefer when it's heavy on the art. And you get all sorts too. This is kind of like a comic booky illustration, and I wonder if the person who illustrated the comic books did this. I'm not really up on all the artists, though I should be. So let's talk a little bit about Veilguard development itself. Right after they shipped Dragon Age Inquisition, they began on development for Veilguard, or what would become Veilguard. In the very beginning, it was known as Project Joplin, and they were just putting together these mood boards, just kind of ideas of what they'd want to see in the game, settings. They knew they wanted it to take place in the north, and they have a lot of just beautiful environment art, very dynamic. So what you see in a lot of art like this, these pieces are meant to be quick, they're meant to be easily reworked, and so oftentimes the artist working on them will take real-life photos of places like you can see in this pilgrimage illustration, repeating textures, stuff like that. It's all meant to be done quickly, it's all meant to be easily editable. Got a lot of black and white storyboard stuff. So stuff like this is what I love. This is 2 pages all about shape language. So if you're creating a big story You want all your characters and factions and places to be easily identifiable, especially if it's a visual medium. So you come up with something called shape language, something to tie similar characters, places, factions together, things like that. So you can see they're experimenting with giving the dwarves a more blocky shape. The wardens get more of an arch motif. The Qunari wear X's on their clothes. Things like that. It's just a really helpful shorthand for communicating information. Yeah, just lovely full page illustrations. So this part of the book was the most interesting to me, because essentially it goes through what Veilguard would have been before all the meddling began. You see all these interesting characters that they were thinking about including, and you get a full rundown of plot points in the game, the plot that they were initially going to center on. It's really pretty crazy. You've got all these different interesting companions, all these different story beats, much different than the game we got. Very dark in some places too. Storyboarding for missions. I mean, they go through just so much unused concept art and so many unused storylines that would have been amazing. There's a whole section about what they wanted the base to be. They wanted it to be a mobile base. So at first they kind of thought of using a ship that Isabella would procure, and I love this illustration. She is just so proud of that ship that she got, and everyone else is not impressed. You've got a lot of infighting among your companions. Just beautiful art for things that would never be. Then they moved on to maybe making a submarine, and this is really cool, very Atlantis vibes. It'd be shaped like a sea monster or a dragon. Got some unique characters to run the ship. But yeah, from what I understand, Project Joplin, what Veilguard would have been, if not for shareholder nonsense. It would be like a more of a heist game. There'd be a lot of heists. So you're chasing after Solus, you're trying to stop him, and you're going on all these misadventures with your crew. And they started designing companions. Love this character art. Cole would have come back. I love Cole, if you remember him from Dragon Age Inquisition. And there is one of the first illustrations of Emmerich, who was my favorite companion in Veilguard. But yep, just trying to design different characters. A lot of them got cut. Here's the beginnings of Gillenane and Elgernon. Elgernon stays pretty much the same as these concept sketches, but Gillenane transforms wildly. And I love her design in the game. I'm always a fan of when they allow female monsters to be truly monstrous. Like, your mileage may vary, but she is not hot, she is not sexy. She is straight up a monster, and I love that. There's a lot of explorations of early companions. Calpurnia was supposed to show up. That character later became Nev. You would have had a Cerebas, so a mage Qunari, which would have been so cool. Here's the early beginnings of Tosh, and I gotta say, I much prefer this look. There's a lot of discourse around Tosh, and I'm not necessarily here to get into it, but I do love this look. So cool. Early Lucanus. Yeah, just a ton of awesome character designs. If you're into character design and you don't even really know anything about Dragon Age, I would recommend this book. There's just some really interesting character design concepts in here. Just look at that. Look how gross that outfit is. Monster designs I especially love. There's some pretty crazy ones in here. I really wish they had included more weird, gross monsters in the game, because Gillenane is one of the main villains, and her whole thing is turning creatures and people into terrible monstrosities. So this is supposed to be her version of a mermaid. And we don't really get that much. We got Darkspawn redesigns, and that's about it. I really thought we would get more monsters in Veilguard since Gillenane was in it, but alas. But this book is just beautifully put together. So let's talk about art style. Much has been made of the Veilguard art style. I personally don't care for it. They kind of explain why they went in that route on this page, but I don't agree with their explanation. And I think maybe they had to say something like this. But they were talking about the previous art styles, like in Inquisition, being Uncanny Valley, and wanting to lean into something more stylized, which I understand, but I will say Inquisition was not Uncanny Valley in the least, in my opinion. It looked fine to me, and I think they went way too stylized with this, especially with the bloom effect. It just made everything look so Fortnite, And I'm 100% sure that that is the result when they were moving the game into more of a live service game, which would have been a terrible idea, despite what they may say. So they put a lot of focus on refining shapes, making it simpler, making things smoother and glossier. If you turn off the bloom effect in Veilguard, it is tolerable. But otherwise, I really do not care for this art style that they went with, and I'm far from the only one. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Veilguard. It's a very long game, so it took me a while to get through it. But there were times when I was just like, what is this? But here you have a page dedicated to Elgernon, which is one of the big bads, one of the Evanurus. Another thing, I'm sorry, I did like the game, but I'm going to still complain about it because it was not perfect, far from it. So Elgernon and Gillenane are basically ancient elven gods. The ancient elven gods in this pantheon have a name, the Evanurus. Throughout the game, instead of saying Evanurus, they just keep on saying the gods. Oh, the gods will be there. The gods are working on this thing. We're going to fight the gods. It loses all meaning when you say it that often, and you have a cool made-up word for it already. Just call them the Evanurus. That drove me crazy. I don't know why. I don't know why they made these decisions. So here is Gillenane, and this is the design they went with for the game, and it's just, I love it. 10 out of 10, no notes, perfect. She's a mad scientist who experimented on herself. She's real messed up, slay queen. And this is another really interesting segment. They were thinking about having these characters showed up called scoundrels. They're just unique little characters, and you could either defeat them and get their armor, or they would owe you a favor down the road. And that is very interesting. I mean, to be honest, I would love the armor of everyone here. But I wonder if that's also more of a live service element. Here you can see Emmerich again. So here we get into our companions. Bellara, I love the evolution of concept design for these characters. I don't think the marketing did Bellara any favors. She was one of the companions I was looking least forward to. And at times her personality could be jarring, and her background music was terrible. It was like some wah, 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 wah. Like, what game are we in? But anyway, she was a much better character than I thought she would be. Much less kooky than I thought, which is good. She got some moments of levity. Davrin, another character I loved, and he comes with a baby griffin. No complaints there. Emmerich. Emmerich was my main man. My favorite companion. I romanced him. No regrets. He's a gentleman necromancer, and he has a skeleton manservant. There's been a lot of discourse about the writing in this game, but one of the quests you go on with Emmerich in particular is so touching. The writing is just so beautiful, and like it really hit me in the heart. So Veilguard isn't a total waste. Not at all. There are some moments of some really poignant, really lovely writing. Unfortunately, it's just not like that throughout the entire game. Here's Harding's page, and I'm going to cover up a spoiler on this side just in case, because I want to rant about her for a little bit. She was in Dragon Age Inquisition. I was excited to see her return in this game, but her personality is completely different. She's just like giggly and bubbly, and the performance was not like that in Inquisition. Very strange. She ended up being my least favorite companion, and I was not expecting that. Lucanus, he's a typical assassin guy, very brooding. He likes coffee. He didn't make much of an impression on me, but very beautiful art. Nev is super cool. I really love her design. What's especially interesting here is there's a lot of text about her prosthetic leg and how they met with these focus groups basically to help them design the prosthetic, and the groups basically told them that less is more. It shouldn't bring attention to it. It should just be, a part of her. I'm sorry if you didn't sign up for a discussion like this, but I'm going to get into it anyway. Especially in the political climate nowadays, I think there's a lot of vitriol regarding these groups that advocate for people with disabilities and things like that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with inclusion. Like, if you've got a character with a prosthetic leg, why not talk to someone or several people who have prosthetics and see what they think about it? Give their opinion. It's crazy the amount of people in the world who live completely different lives than you do. And I think it's important to understand that and just get a little bit of insight outside your own circle, I don't think there's anything wrong with seeking out people who have had a different experience than you and getting their take on things. But what do I know? So here we have Tosh. Like I said, I prefer her earlier character design by a lot. Most of that comes from the fact that somewhere in the process, they made the Qunari very human looking. If you go back especially to Dragon Age 2, they almost looked more like creatures. And in like Inquisition, you have Iron Bull, who barely resembles a human. But in this, they just look like people with horns and like horns spouting directly from their 5 heads. And it is not a direction I was happy with for the Qunari because they're my favorite race. So yeah, I do not care for this Tosh character design. Of course, the world doesn't begin and end with my opinion. Let's talk briefly about Tosh, the whole non-binary thing. I'm not going to go too much into this because I'm sure a million other creators have, and they've probably made better points than me. So in the marketing for this game and when reviews were coming out and stuff, there was a lot of talk about Tosh's journey being about accepting themselves as non-binary. And having played the game, yes, that is true, but there's a whole nother 2 or 3 actually arcs to their story that no one talks about because they're too focused on the non-binary thing. I will say that the non-binary arc writing is not great. In Dragon Age Inquisition, we had Krim, who was a trans soldier, and the writing around him was phenomenal. Tash really got the short end of the stick when it came to that. It's just very, gosh, I can't think of the word for it. It's just juvenile almost. It could have been way more nuanced. And I don't mean nuanced in the way of like making it more subtle so people wouldn't get upset. I mean just more nuanced in a story manner, you know? But honestly, because of all the discourse, I was going in thinking that I was going to dislike Tash immensely. Not because they're non-binary, but because everything else I saw just made me be like, I don't know about this character. But I came to actually really enjoy them. They're a really fun character. They hit really hard, which is great because the targeting system in this game is nuts. Enemies do not care about your companions. They will go after you at all times. And it makes some fights almost impossible. But it's good to have Tosh because they can use a taunt feature. Davrin too. But yeah, I thought Balara and Tosh were going to be my least favorite companions, and that did not turn out to be the case at all. I really enjoyed them. So here is the card art for all the companions, and it is so beautiful. I would love a print of all these. Lucanus, Balara, Tosh, Nev, Emric, my boyfriend, Harding, Davrin, and then you got the gang all together. This was one of the earliest illustrations of the gang as we know it, all assembled. So here are the Darkspawn designs. And that's another point of contention that people had with this game. The Darkspawn look straight up doofy, and I won't argue with that. In the previous games, they were like orcs almost. They were more human, but still very monstery, and they had really sophisticated armor. Here they are naked except for natural growths, and man, the ogre in particular looks pretty goofy. There's a in-story explanation for why the design changed so much, but we all know that design begins and ends with the people making the story. I think this is another thing held over from the live service development team. But you get a lot of other cool enemies. It's not just the Darkspawn. This one in particular is very, very scary and also hard to fight. The demons also get a redesign, and I don't really have a problem with that because the demon designs in the first place were never really impressive. I really enjoy the nervous system motif that they went with for the demons. So yeah, very cool stuff there. You got some dragons. It wouldn't be Dragon Age without dragons. That's why it's called Dragon Age. More cool character design, prop design. You gotta design those weapons. Cityscapes. The Lords of Fortune, I think, are a new faction. Once again, I believe they were probably introduced in the live service development era as like an adventuring guild. Very flashy. Isabella's there. She looks like she hasn't aged a day, even though it's been a decade. Give me your skincare routine. A bunch of cool sea monsters that we never see in the game. I am a sea monster fan, so it's a little bit disappointing. The Morn Watch. So this was the faction I chose, and I am very glad I did. So from what I hear, I've only played through the Morn Watch. I played as a Morn Watch elf mage. So what I hear is that the Morn Watch and the Grey Wardens have the most interactivity in the game. Otherwise, interactions are kind of bare bones. but that's just what I heard. I will say that there were a lot of options to chime in as a Morn watcher, and I really enjoyed that, and I love their aesthetic. So your home base is a place that you can choose how you decorate it, and you can decorate it with things from your faction. So when I decided to decorate with Morn watch stuff, it just put so many skeletons in the home base. So many skeletons, just everywhere you look. Skulls and skeletons and creepy things. It was a vibe for sure. I mean, look at that. Just such cool art and character design. This was the outfit I wore for most of my playthrough. Just killer. And it kind of bums me out. I know people talk such smack about this game, but there's a lot of good things in it too. Is it a perfect game? No, not at all. And of course, if you're watching this, you already know or you've heard this, but it doesn't fit the tone of the other Dragon Age games at all. Everything's a little bit sanitized. It's a little bit nicer. I played as an elf and no one was racist to me at all. Not that I'm looking for that in my games, but it is a very important plot point, or it was throughout the other games. You know, the elves are treated very poorly and they're stuffed into alienages. But here, no one had a problem with me. Really cool graffiti design. I love seeing graffiti everywhere in games. It just gives the world a sense of character. Bits and bobs that have to be designed. Man, I'm just thinking about how awesome it must have been to work on these games. I mean, I say that, but then these people are subjected to massive crunch. As a creative, you're probably butting heads a lot with the money people, but just the amount of art that you get to create, you get paid to do all this awesome stuff. How much? I don't know. You should be paid a lot, but I'm not sure that's the case. At one point, they were floating a werebear companion. I'm on record as loving werebears. Where's my werebear? Just a lot of cool stuff. A bunch of Warden assets. You get to visit the Anderfells, which reminds me of Anders, who you never get any closure on. That's another thing about this game, is that you don't get any closure about anything, really. Basically, none of the choices you made in Inquisition or in other games matter. There's no reference to Hawk. There's no reference to the hero Ferelden. Not that I found, anyway. I really love this art of all the characters gathered around the table. You get a lot of scenes like that in the game where you kind of meet up. Family meeting time. And that's it. We leave off on an adorable illustration of Asan and Manfred. And that is it for the Dragon Age Veilguard art book. So if it's not perfectly clear, I love this art book. I would recommend it. From what I understand, this one is kind of pricey. It might be on sale now since the game didn't do too well, but there is just a regular version that's probably cheaper. For fans of the game, I would highly recommend this. For fans of art and design, video games in general, also highly recommend, even if you are not necessarily a Dragon Age fan. And you know what? I recommend the game too. I enjoy all the Dragon Age games. I was enamored with Origins. Dragon Age 2 is actually really good, especially for the amount of time they had to make it. Inquisition, I mean, there's the hinterlands, but the rest is great. The combat is a little lacking, and that is something else I'll say about Veilguard, is that the combat is a lot of fun. I've only played as a mage so far, but you get a dagger and an orb combo that makes a melee build a lot more attainable. Am I disappointed with a lot of the game? Yes. Does that mean it's a terrible game? In my eyes, no. I'm not gonna lie, there are parts where the pacing is atrocious, and some things were introduced where I was just like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, who is this and why are we here? What are we doing? But the combat is fun. The environments are beautiful. I enjoyed the companions, the set pieces. So I studied theme design in college, and then I moved on to work in theme design a little bit. So theme design it's like going to Disney, like tons of theming everywhere. It transports you into a different world. And so what parks like that do, and especially Disney, is that they have these choke points kind of where you are funneled through an area and then it opens up and you see a big set piece. Just something that makes you go, whoa. And they do that for video games too. I remember it most vividly in Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm making Aloy go down this mountain, then all of a sudden I skirt the corner, and in the distance you see another mountain and you see this huge metal robot just perched on the mountain, like digging into it. It was a beautiful set piece, and Veilguard is full of those. Like every mission has something like that just kind of blows your mind. The last mission in particular is crazy. So at the end of the day, the game isn't for everyone. Some people are going to hate it, and that's okay. Some people will love it, and that's okay too. From the sounds of it, we're not going to get any more Dragon Age anytime soon or ever, which is a total bummer because it's such an amazing world. Like, the lore is so cool, but I will treasure what we do have, and I treasure this art book. If you are on the fence about getting it, I'd say go ahead, because it's beautiful. As a fan and as an artist myself, really love this one. And it's something I will be going back to when I work on my own stuff for inspiration. So this ended up being a longer video than I thought. If you're still here, hi, thanks. If you're new, welcome. If you prefer my action figure reviews, don't worry, we're getting back to that. But I want to thank you for sticking it out to the end, and I hope my ramblings made sense, and I hope you enjoyed this look through at the book. As always, likes and subscribes are very much appreciated. Comments are more than welcome, and I will see you guys on the next one.